All right, guys. Our next guest needs very little introduction. He is a former WEC featherweight champion, holds the most wins and most finishes in the UFC's bantamweight division, and will be taking on Jimmy Rivera at UFC 203, the California Kid, Uriah Faber. Welcome back to Submission Radio, man. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Just staying busy, having a good time, and enjoying the heat out here in Sac. It's getting hot.
Okay. Well, on that topic of enjoying yourself, staying busy, and having a good time, before we even talk about you or your fight against Jimmy Rivera at UFC 203, we got to get your thoughts on one of the biggest enigmas currently in MMA, your boy Teruto Ishihara. Is he the biggest player in MMA or what?
He's shooting for that. I think that's the goal. I don't know if he's quite there yet, but he's definitely setting the groundwork for it.
Well, we have to find out, Uriah. Where were you when he got his big win at Salt Lake City, and what did you think of his post-fight speech? Were you even remotely surprised?
Oh no, man! I was back home watching and not surprised at all. Have you seen his signature shirt?
No.
Check out his signature shirt that he's got. It's friggin' classic. It's white with some classic black lettering. I'll let you guys find out for yourself, but he's setting the tone for his what he wants out of life.
I imagine it's pretty much the same thing as his post-fight promo. I mean, his English is still a work in progress, so imagine that you've been helping him with that and showing him a good time. Are there any stories you can share with us where you've taken Teruto out in the town? And of course, this is Australian radio, so you can say whatever you want, Uriah.
Well, Teru's he's a unique character, so he's not shy, that's for sure. He's always calling about he loves his bitches.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always asking to get him called. But he has this girl that comes out. She's got dark skin. She's got light eyes. She's smoking hot. So I'm not exactly sure on his situation. So if he has any good stories, I'll let him tell them himself. But he has a girl that he brought out from Japan, I think she's Spanish, black, Japanese, and American.
Oh my God!
So,
hang on. So
she's a tip.
So is Teruto locked down? Is that what you're telling us?
I don't think he is. But you know what? I'm not sure. I feel like they have a real unique relationship.
Well, we can't break his
a
gimmick
gangster.
now, Uriah, so let's just say she comes down and it's nothing too serious. We know that Team Alpha Male has the best classes when it comes to a whole bunch of areas in MMA, but is there any chance Teruto can start teaching a class about picking up chicks down there at Sacramento for those guys at Team Alpha Male that struggle a little bit?
Yeah, I think the guys are always looking to learn at all different levels. We have all different levels of guys, so if they need to, I'm sure he'll lend a helping hand.
No, of course.
He's I think he's also trying to figure it out for himself.
Beautiful. All right, let's talk about you. The last time we spoke to you, Uriah, was before your fight against Dominic Cruz at UFC 199. Things obviously didn't go your way that night. What for you was the biggest thing that you learned or took away from that fight?
I think I got caught in the second round. That kind of put me on the defense a little bit, took me out of my game plan a little bit. I started fighting a little more straightforward and kind of chasing him and falling into his rhythm and instead of setting my own rhythm. So that was one thing. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy to nail down. He's got broken movements and is kind of unorthodox. So, on top of getting caught with a solid punch in the second, I think probably just, setting the tone more so that I'm the one dictating, the broken movements, etc. Because I've got a similar style where I'm not exactly straightforward. I'm kind of all over the place, but I played a little bit more to his game. And I actually liked, he took me down in the first round, but I liked that scrambling and the grappling side that we had the first round. I would have maybe tried to get more engaged in some scrambles because he seemed to get real tired after the first round.
Mm-hmm. Well, afterwards, it seemed like you weren't sure whether you'd fight again or not. Just curious, Uriah, how close were you to retirement, and what ultimately made you want to continue fighting?
Joe Rogan asked those questions, and I think what kind of spurred it was me saying I've had such a great time doing what I'm doing, which is so true. I love what I do. and it's funny because I have a whole gym full of folks that are coming in for general health and challenging themselves daily, and you see people that whatever they're doing, they're trying their hardest at. And I've got friends that do, I've got a buddy that just did a 100-mile marathon, and then I've got other people that do the CrossFit challenges, and people do these taxing things. And for me, I love the fight game, and I'm still going to be training just as hard, and I'm ranked number 2 in the world. So it's what I do for fun. It's what I do to make money. It's an example that I'm setting for the other guys, and so I'm not quite done yet. And if I'm not done, I'm going to fight right away. There's no reason to just sit around and think when you already know the answer. I'm not done, so let's get another fight right away. And I want a tough top guy. And this kid Rivera is very tough, man. I know a couple of guys that are ranked above him turned the fight down, and I'm on about trying to protect anything. I'm about challenging myself and fighting whoever they throw at me, and they thought this would be a tough matchup, and I accepted.
Wow, so you say you know a few guys that turned the fight down. Who do you know that turned the fight down, and now you've got it?
Well, I know one guy in particular, I think is Brian Caraway, but I think he was waiting to fight until later, and I don't know if he maybe trained with Rivera at some point or what the whole story is, but that was one guy that I was told.
Well, you've spoken to us before about how brutal the weight cut is for you these days to 135, and 145 looks a lot more appealing to you. Was it a tough decision for you to go back down to 135, or what was the sort of thought process there for you?
When I accepted the fight, I was lighter than I am now.
Wow.
It takes time. It takes time for you to to get down to weight, and then it takes time to get back up to whatever you're supposed to be at. But so that was part of the process. Was I was staying around 50, 52, 54 right after the fight because my weight was staying down. I mean, that's still 20 pounds overweight or 19 pounds overweight, but that's a lot lighter than 164 or whatever. So once you get back into training, you're eating more, et cetera, it's going to be a tough cut, but I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to go right away. The longer I wait, the heavier I'll start to stack on muscle and get bigger. So for right now, with the weight cut at 135 and just coming off of a major preparation for a world championship fight, I just felt like I was ready and poised, and like I said, you forget how crappy it is until you're right in the heat of cutting the weight, and I'm not quite there yet. So I'll be reminded in about 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll have no trouble remembering very soon. Well, I mean, Jimmy's on an 18-fight win streak, including 3 in the UFC. What do you know about him, and are you impressed with him?
I'm very impressed with the guy. I've seen a couple of his interviews, and it's apparent that he takes this sport very serious. He has a lot of confidence, and his skill set has been growing. He's coming off of a couple of knockouts that are happening later in his career. He had a lot of decisions for a while, and then now you can see that he's got that knockout power, and he's able to find the mark. So it's a tough fight. It's a very tough fight. Not many guys know about him, but I do. He's fought on a bunch of different shows, and I take this very, very seriously. And I know that this was probably the biggest opportunity for him to come in and fight a guy that's been around as long as I have and done the things that I have. So I know he's going to be super motivated. And that's what gets me excited about fighting, man. I want the tough fights. I want these guys that are hungry and talented, because that's what keeps me on edge.
Well, let's talk about the matchup for a second. Where do you see your skills being better than him, and how do you see yourself breaking his streak?
Well, do you guys count the Dennis Bermudez fight in that streak?
I don't remember.
He was on The Ultimate Fighter, and he lost to get in the house to Dennis Bermudez.
He got knocked out, yeah, and he didn't make it in the show. Right. Okay, yep.
Yeah. So, I consider that as a fight because it was actually a fight. That wasn't a professional fight. So he's on an 18-fight win streak, but, not including that one. I would say we're going to figure out speed and strength. You don't really know until you're right in front of someone. I always like to think I'm stronger and faster than the people that I fight. He's got good traditional boxing. I'm a little more creative. I feel like he's got some traditional martial arts. We did some little kicks and stuff that are effective. But I think creativity is going to be my advantage. I think wrestling caliber. I know I'm a Division I wrestler, competed in NCAAs. I was top 12. He's a high school wrestler, but has good MMA for wrestling for MMA. So we'll see how that translates over. And I'm always confident about my ground game. So I haven't got to see too much of him on the ground, but I think I'll have an advantage there. I always give myself an advantage there. So I think probably the things that are very close are, it doesn't seem like neither of us get tired. So it's going to be a high-paced fight, and I don't see him as the type of guy that breaks. So that's something that's pretty even. Everything else we're going to have to find out once we're right in front of each other.
Right. I mean, all signs point to this being an extremely exciting one at UFC 203. I'm just wondering, though, every time we sort of talk to you about these matchups where obviously you're the big name guy and there's a guy who's sort of trying to get the rub from you and he's trying to put himself over by beating you, and obviously the implications and what a win would do over you. I'm also just wondering, considering how close you were to retirement after the Cruz loss, and obviously you've bounced back now, has the thought entered your mind at all, Uriah, that, if things don't go your way against Jimmy Rivera, that you might finish up your career? Have you thought about that at all?
Maybe. I mean, I've thought about finishing up my career a bunch of different times. So, I don't think a win or a loss isn't the defining factor on that. I look at guys, and I had a good talk with Dan Henderson, and he had like a 5-fight losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
He kept on going. And I don't want to be fighting in my late 40s, but I think he's up next for the title shot right now with a big win that he had over a tough guy. So this is a very strange sport. When everybody tries to figure it out, it comes down to, there's opportunities, and if you take yourself out of the equation, you're not there for the opportunity. If you're in the equation, you're there for the opportunity. I mean, I was very close to having a fight with Conor McGregor, the one that Nate Diaz got. Dana White called me, and it was close to happening. Conor ended up wanting to fight Nate Diaz, and it didn't happen, but that was at 155 pounds, and it was against one of the fastest growing, if not the biggest star in the sport. So I know my skill set's there. It's taken me a long time to get to where I am right now. A win or a loss has never been a defining thing for me or a decision-making thing for me. I'm the type of guy that follows my heart, my passion, and tries to be as realistic as possible. And so we'll see. Maybe it's the last one, win or lose. Maybe it's, maybe I do a couple more. Maybe I end up getting a last-minute call to fight Conor McGregor or put another fight against Cruz. Who knows what's going to happen? I know there's a fight in Sacramento in December, and I've had my eye on that. So, never want to say exactly what's going to happen because you never know.
Yeah, certainly. And you're right. We really appreciate the time. We're going to let you go in just a few minutes. Just a few last questions before we let you go. Quickly on that whole Conor McGregor situation. So you're still interested in fighting Conor McGregor because, like he said, you never know what's going to happen in the future in the world of the UFC. And if he does lose against Nate Diaz next week, he could be looking for another huge fight. Would you be interested in possibly putting up your hand if this is sometime after you beat Jimmy?
Oh, of course. And that's, I would definitely do that. And I actually like Conor a lot. And I got to know him on the show. I like some things about him, entertained by him for sure. Mm-hmm. And, it's one of the fights that's interesting. I like interesting fights. And you have to do some that may not be as interesting. It's a little bit harder to get up, for a fight where no one really knows the tough guy that you're fighting. But, you got to force yourself to do that as a professional, as somebody that loves what we're doing, and understand that this guy Rivera is very, very dangerous. So I'm not looking at past him at all. And who knows what the future holds? But I have a real hard time turning down a fight. I have a real hard time turning down a business opportunity. I have a real hard time turning down a good time. So no, that's just me, and I'm just doing my thing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we have a hard time turning down a good time as well, Uriah. Well, the big fight, UFC 202, is happening just next week. The odds have Conor McGregor as the favorite, but we also what happened in that first fight. Well, we're on the subject of Conor McGregor. Who do you pick in this rematch? How do you think this one goes? Do you think McGregor gets it done against Diaz, or do you think this is going to be 2 wins in a row for Nate?
I think Diaz is going to get him. As far as what makes Conor so great, he's still going to bring that to the table. He's a heavy puncher. He's got incredible confidence. We'll see if that's broken or not. He's an athletic guy. He's good at timing, etc. The things that make Diaz great is that he's put in hours and hours and years and years and years and years growing as a mixed martial artist. And I think Conor's done the same, but not to the same level. He's not he's not as accomplished on the ground. He hasn't gone with the wrestlers, and like Nate has been saying, he's been boxing with guys like Andre Ward and high-level boxers that are some of the best in the world for a long time. So it's not like a clear slate. Nate's going to win or Conor's going to win, but I think the odds are a little bit in Diaz's favor because he can take a punch and he has a high output just like Conor does, and he's got a better skill set on the ground. But, you don't count Conor out. You saw what he did to Aldo and what he's done to other top-level guys. But my money's on Nate, and I think the odds, I don't know how the odds started, but odds are affected by how people bet. And Conor's got a loyal fan base that will bet cash on him. So I don't know if he's the betting favorite now versus when the odds came out. Do you know that or no?
You know what? It's been a few days since we checked him, but when we checked him last, Conor McGregor was the favorite. Not by a whole lot, but just by a little bit. You're right, we're almost out of time, so we got a couple more questions, then we'll get out of your hair, we promise. You mentioned just before that you're eyeing a fight in December at obviously the new arena in Sacramento, so it doesn't seem like you're going anywhere anytime soon. I'm just wondering if, A, do you know specifically who you would want to fight? And before you answer, let me just throw this out there, because I was wondering, you've spoken about how you believe you might get another title shot soon, and it kind of seems like the best path for a title shot, even though it's one that you may not love, would be TJ Dillashaw, just because the narrative is there, and obviously the UFC loves those narrative fights as opposed to sort of rankings. I'm just wondering, have you sort of considered that, and would you agree that at this point, the best way for you to get a title shot would be through TJ Dillashaw?
I would say that's pretty accurate, yep. And, I didn't say I think I'm in line for a title shot. I just said I would always accept a title shot, and I'd never count myself out of one. I can't remember who asked me. I think Boss Rutan had asked that on Inside MMA. And, there's a reason why I've been a champion or a top contender for the last 13 years, and that's because I don't stop training, and I believe in myself, and I live a healthy lifestyle, and I'm always poised for an opportunity. And so who knows what will happen? And we'll see. Maybe I'll decide to call it quits after this fight. Maybe I'll go another fucking 4 years. Most likely, it's not going to be too much longer than I'm fighting, but I'm looking forward to some big fights, and that new arena sounds amazing to me.
All right, well, the most important question of all before we let you go, how do you see yourself beating Jimmy Rivera at UFC 203? What's the official prediction?
Not sure exactly. I'd like to catch him in the first round with something. I know he's rocked a couple guys as of late, but he's also been rocked a couple times. So I've seen him on deer legs 2 or 3 times, and a good punch to a good submission sounds good to me sometime in the first round.
Well, there you go. Uriah Faber looking to bounce back, and bounce back very hard, might we add, at UFC 203 against Jimmy Rivera, which takes place September 10th. Of course, due to the time difference, it's going to be September 11th here in Australia. Don't forget to follow Uriah on Twitter and Instagram at Uriah Faber. And, of course, you can catch all the fun and shenanigans on Snapchat at Uriah Faber1. Uriah, thank you so much for chatting with us. It's always a pleasure.
All right, you got it, guys.